The story begins in a big city, where a woman named Sarah was moving into her new home with her husband, Mason. Soon, the couple finished placing all their belongings inside. They had been married just a year earlier and had shifted to the city because of work. Later, when Sarah tried to spend some time with Mason, he remained busy with his work. Disappointed, Sarah became upset, and Mason stepped outside to clear his mind. Outside, he met a man who noticed that Mason was injured. The man introduced himself as Binso. Hearing the name, Mason was surprised, because standing before him was the famous storyteller whose works were well known everywhere. Binso confirmed this and smiled. Mason told him that he too loved writing stories and was a big admirer of his work. Hearing this, Binso invited Mason to his home someday. The next morning, Sarah was busy guiding her workers. She was a fashion designer, always engaged in preparing new clothing designs. Mason, on the other hand, loved reading and writing stories. He spent time on the rooftop with his books and later walked around the market for the day. That evening, Mason and Sarah decided to visit Binso's house, who turned out to be their new neighbor. Binso warmly welcomed them. Just then, his daughter Rena stepped out of her room. She was a young and graceful girl, and Mason was struck by her beauty. Binso noticed his gaze but continued with the conversation, asking Rena to arrange drinks for the guests. Rena soon returned with refreshments, served them politely, and went back to her work. As they enjoyed their drinks, Binso shared that his wife had passed away 10 years earlier, and since then, Rena had taken care of the household. Sarah also spoke about her work as a fashion designer, and later she and Mason returned home. That night, while Binso was working on a new story, the doorbell rang. Rena opened the door and found Mason standing there. He had forgotten his handkerchief at their place. Rena picked it up and smiled as she handed it back, sparking the beginning of something unexpected. She liked Mason, and Mason already liked her too, so he found a moment and started kissing her. Just then they stopped, hearing Binso's voice. Binso was surprised when he saw Mason there. They quickly explained about the handkerchief. After that, Mason left the place immediately. The next morning, Rena was going in the lift. At the same time, Sarah and Mason entered too. On asking, Rena said she was back from market. Sarah told her that they were back from church. Rena teased Mason while Sarah was distracted. She even held his hand secretly for a while. Mason stopped her because Sarah was present. Soon, the lift stopped and Rena came out first. Then the couple also stepped out of the lift. After some time, Binso went out for some work. Mason saw him going and noted it silently. Soon, Sarah also returned back home from gym. Mason quickly went inside Binso's house then, but Sarah noticed him going and became alert. Mason was kissing Rena when he reached her. Just then, Binso came back and Mason hid fast. Binso did not notice him as he got his book. Taking it, he again went outside the house. As Binso left, Mason warned Rena of Sarah. After that, he returned home to meet his wife. Sarah asked why he had gone to Binso's place. Mason lied, saying he had returned a book. Sarah trusted his words, and so Mason was safe. Late night, Mason was returning from the market. Rena caught him and pulled him into her room. Mason asked her about Binso's attention daily. Rena told him he only cared for his stories, so he can do anything without being noticed. Sarah was at a party, so Mason also had time. Both of them grew closer in those moments. Late at night, Binso slept on the sofa working, so Rena told Mason to leave the house soon. But Binso was awake and had seen it all. Sarah returned drunk from the party outside, so Mason carefully took care of her that night. Next morning, Binso was drinking his hot tea. Rena came and told him she was going market. After she left, Binso looked outside the window. He saw Mason once again meeting with Rena. This time, even Sarah noticed both of them too. Binso thought for a while and went to Sarah's. It was his first time inside Sarah's own house. Sarah welcomed him warmly and treated kindly. After asking about her, Binso said calmly, Mason always looks so very tired these days. Seeing his condition, it seemed to me that your relationship was not going well. Sarah told him that Mason was always busy writing his stories. Whenever she tried to get close to him, he avoided her. Binso explained that she should talk to him lovingly, so that Mason would leave his work and spend more time with her. Binso had come only to guide Sarah, so that Mason would focus on her instead of following Rena. At 60, Binso was very experienced. He knew that Mason was attracted to Rena only because of constant quarrels with Sarah. Meanwhile, Mason and Rena's secret connection had already begun. Whenever they got a chance, they spent time together. Binso knew everything about their affair, but Sarah remained unaware. Whenever Sarah tried to get Mason's attention, he showed no interest because his mind was elsewhere. One day, Binso was going out for work, and Mason saw him leaving through the window. As soon as Binso left, Mason went directly to Rena. Since Sarah was not at home, Mason took the opportunity to be with her. But Rena was busy cleaning the house, so she stopped him. At that moment, Mason noticed something strange and began questioning Rena. At first, she said nothing. When he kept asking, she revealed a truth that left him shocked. She confessed that ever since her mother passed away, her father had treated her very differently. Mason could not believe it. He had always thought Binso was a good man, but now he realized there was something very wrong. Hearing this truth, Mason left the place in silence, while Rena broke down crying. Yet the full reality was still hidden. Rena had never told Mason everything. The truth was that Binso would do anything for his stories, even cross moral limits. Years ago, he had once wanted to write about dark and forbidden relationships. To make his writing feel real, he crossed lines with Rena, and it became his habit. Rena, on the other hand, only wanted to satisfy her desires, and for that, she could go to any length. Now, Binso was working on a story about secret and twisted bonds. On his suggestion, Rena had even started her connection with Mason. Whatever Mason shared with her, she told Binso, and he wrote everything into his stories. After a few days, Mason again started visiting Rena and spending time secretly with her. But this time, he had made up his mind. He would get rid of Binso forever and then marry Rena. One day, while Binso was leaving the house, Mason kept watching him through the window. Rena, Binso's daughter, was also standing nearby. Looking at Binso, Mason whispered to Rena, "I have arranged everything today. After tonight, he will never trouble you again." Binso continued walking down the road, but suddenly a speeding car hit him and drove away. That single hit ended Binso's life. Later that night, Mason secretly met the driver and handed him money for the job he had done. A few days later, Mason and Sarah attended an event. The event was organized by Rena, who wanted to release her father's new story. But to Mason's surprise, Rena was standing with another young man, and seeing them together disturbed him deeply. After the program ended, when Mason and Sarah returned home, a stranger handed Sarah a book. It was Binso's last, unpublished story. When Sarah began to read it, she was shocked. The entire story was written about her and Mason. Every detail of their life was there. Sarah constantly fighting with Mason, Mason then drifting toward Rena, and Sarah discovering his betrayal. She read the story aloud to Mason, and even he was stunned. The truth of his affair with Rena could no longer be hidden. Enraged, Sarah confronted him and began arguing. When she struck him in anger, Mason lost control and attacked her. Sarah fell, hitting her head hard, and that fatal injury claimed her life. In the end, the police arrested Mason for the crime. Rena, meanwhile, had already moved on with her new lover. On the very day Mason had plotted Binso's death, Rena had distanced herself from him out of fear. Thus, the story reached its dark conclusion. Thank you very much for watching our video.